chain fatty acids. In fact, Jane Foster at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas recently looked at increased anxiety in people with depression and found a reduction in a community of bacteria that are linked to these short-chain fatty acids. Foster praised this latest research because it didn't look at things in isolation.
What they've done is using many different lenses demonstrated low resilience and the high resilience are different from the bottom to the top.
There's lots of scientific interest in using treatments like probiotics, prebiotics, diet, even fecal transplants to influence the microbiome. But Foster says studies like this one from UCLA can be powerful because it turns up biomarkers that eventually could help steer decisions about how to use existing treatments. She says the microbiome is the product of so many different forces in our life.
It represents the DNA you were born with. It represents drugs you've taken over your lifespan. It represents the diet you eat today, and it represents the recent stressors that have been in your body.
And in the not-too-distant future, she believes insights about our microbiome can lead the way to better mental health. Will Stone, NPR News.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm E. Martinez.
And I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Janae Pierre. Good morning. You're listening to WNYC at 6:50. It's nice to have you with us. Marketplace Morning Report is next. And later on Morning Edition, President Biden and his predecessor Donald Trump face off on the debate stage this Thursday. The event in Atlanta comes early in the election run-up and puts the two on a path to direct confrontation at a high-stakes moment. We'll talk to two former presidential speechwriters about what to expect. That's coming up in about 15 minutes, so stay with us. You're listening to Morning Edition right here on WNYC. Fairly warm start to the day. It's 75 degrees under partly cloudy skies at the moment. It'll be mostly sunny today with a high around 82.
WNYC is supported by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping public radio advance journalistic excellence in the digital age. The Knight Foundation believes informed and engaged communities are essential for healthy democracy. More at kf.org.
On the next All of It, summer can be a lonely time if you don't feel like you have exciting plans every weekend, and all you see on social media are people taking fantastic trips. We'll talk about how to combat FOMO, that's the fear of missing out, with a therapist. Plus, if you're staycationing and you discover that you have non-human roommates, we'll talk about pest control with an entomologist. Join us for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
The college financial aid deadline is in less than a week. What the FAFSA form misses.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. Customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto. Learn more about bundling at progressive.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. The deadline for students and parents to get their federal financial aid form into colleges and universities is this coming Sunday, the 30th. And with all that data you input on income and savings, there's still something missing, something big: overall household wealth. Some education policy researchers say the financial aid system should be taking a closer look at big assets like homes. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes reports.
Income is money a household gets through things like salary or investments. Wealth is the total value of a household's assets. Two of the most valuable assets for American families are retirement savings and their home itself, if they own it.
Those items are not included in the FAFSA.
Philip Levine is an economics professor at Wellesley. He says one reason the FAFSA is more income-focused is that it's a lot easier to measure than wealth. What it means, though, is if two students have the same income and one student's family owns their home, both of them get the same amount of financial aid.
But one of them has greater resources than the other.
If the government gathers more information about wealth, that could be useful in targeting aid to students who need it most, says Mamie Voigt, who leads the Institute for Higher Education Policy. That doesn't mean the FAFSA has to be longer.
We should be looking for creative ways to get that information through administrative means, for example, data that the government already has,
as opposed to overwhelming students with more questions. I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
There are reports today that federal prosecutors are recommending criminal charges against Boeing in connection with 2 fatal crashes several years ago involving Boeing 737 MAX planes. Senior officials still have to make a final decision. Marketplace's Nova Safo joins me now with more.
Yeah, David, for months now, really, if not years, the families of some of the 346 people who died in those 2 crashes have been urging the U.S. Justice Department to reopen its criminal case against Boeing and to charge some of the executives who were running the company at the time. The crashes happened in 2018 and 2019. Now, back in 2021, Boeing entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the Justice Department and agreed to make a number of improvements on its production lines. Boeing says it's done so, but prosecutors last month said Boeing was in breach of its agreement, and that was the result of the intense scrutiny the plane maker has been under following that fuselage panel blowout mid-flight on a MAX plane in January. And we've been waiting ever since, really, to find out whether new charges will be filed against Boeing.
Now, this apparent recommendation from prosecutors doesn't mean charges are for certain. What are some of the other courses of action open to the Justice Department?
Well, the Justice Department could decide to do nothing. They could enter into a new deferred prosecution agreement or extend the current one. And Reuters is reporting that there are discussions between the 2 sides in search of a resolution, so there could be something around that area. Also, keep in mind that a prosecution is not a slam dunk. The Justice Department did prosecute Boeing's chief technical pilot, and he was acquitted by a jury.
All right, Nova, thank you. Markets, S&P futures are up 0.1%, Dow futures up 0.3%, but NASDAQ futures are down 0.1%. Stocks are on track for their best first half of an election year since 1976. That's the Jerry Ford, Jimmy Carter year.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Affinity, provider of the CRM for the private capital relationship economy. Affinity knows who has the best relationship with the right startup. Affinity knows. Learn more at affinity.co/marketplace. And by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
Visas for nurses are running out again months before the end of the federal accounting year, and for healthcare providers seeking talent abroad, this is a problem. Qualified nurses are in high demand, and the Health Resources and Services Administration projects a shortfall of tens of thousands of registered nurses annually. Marketplace's Elizabeth Troval has that.
For U.S. healthcare providers and the foreign nurses who want to work for them, the wait to get a visa to the U.S. is growing. Sinead Carberry is with staffing firm AMN Healthcare.
Unfortunately, there are many more in the queue waiting for visas than there are visas available.
She says for a nurse applying today, the wait time has increased to roughly 2.5 years.
And unless we do something legislatively, it's only going to get worse.
Without creating more visa slots, she estimates wait times will grow by 6 months every year.
It's very challenging for the professionals themselves. They're overseas. They want to come to the United States. They get in line, and then the timeline just keeps changing.
The nursing visa backlog has fluctuated significantly over the past decade. Immigration attorney Chris Masillo says it actually got better during the pandemic.
From an immigration visa perspective, it allowed the U.S. government to prioritize certain kinds of workers.
Like healthcare workers, which we desperately needed. But now that the visa process has returned to normal, the backlog is back. And immigration attorney Elisa Taub says healthcare providers aren't happy.
I've told employers at this point, honestly, I can't tell you how long it's going to take for this nurse to come. This avenue is not going to be a good way for you to fill your needs today.
She says some are testing out other limited visa options, while others may opt not to recruit foreign workers at all. But
I do think that demand is going to remain high because some employers are so desperate. They're like, look, let's just get them in the system and go, right, and just see what happens.
But NYU nursing professor Allison Squires says those desperate employers turning to foreign workers have another option. Do more to retain nurses. Studies show roughly 1 in 5 registered nurses left their jobs in 2023.
Where the work needs to happen, though, is really around the work environment.
She says creating safer, more supportive work culture will help employers retain both U.S. and foreign-born nurses. I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
And the tech company that helps run car dealerships and other retailers across America says it has begun work to restore systems amid the ongoing ransomware attack by hackers looking for big money. CDK Global said over the weekend that bringing systems back could take several days. Some dealerships have gone back to old-fashioned paper and pen, or according to the Detroit Free Press, sending people over to the DMV to file for license plates. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.